Welcome to Speaking of Pets.
We're the Novotny sisters from Cleveland, Ohio.
I'm Dr. Alice Novotny-Jeroman, a board-certified veterinary dermatologist.
And I'm not. I'm Janet Novotny-King, the doctor's sister, podcast co-host, pet owner, rescuer, and lover.
We're here to provide pet owners with science-based information to help them be the best pet parents they can be.
Here's today's episode, created just for you and your pets.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Speaking of Pets. And we have had so many questions about nutrition, pet food. You're going down the aisles. There's orange bags, pink bags, yellow bags. It's confusing to me, even as a veterinarian. And Janet, my sister co-host.
There's food scraps. Should I feed, some of my food to my pet? What kind of treats do I give my pet? How many calories? I don't think we even worry about caloric intake in our pets. So lots of nutrition questions.
Right. So who did we go to? Our nutrition expert, Dr. Amy Farcas. And we have so many questions that viewers have sent in. Just everyday questions that as a veterinarian I would get asked. But let's face it, some of these questions we could talk an hour about. And that's why I'm so thankful that Dr. Farcas agreed to appear on the show today, because we've got a lot of questions about just plain old daily nutrition for my pet that doesn't have any existing diseases like diabetes or hypothyroid, things like that. But she also has something which I think is really cool. It's called Full Circle Pet Nutrition, which involves a nutritionist such as herself, the pet owner, and the veterinarian, so that they can coordinate what food is best for that pet. So welcome, Dr. Farcas. I would love if you'd give us a little history about how you got to be doing what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. I'm excited to join you. You guys are actually my very first podcast.
Oh, a virgin.
So you went to vet school where?
At UC Davis.
Yep.
So I am one of these teenagers, kind of still am, who walked into a vet clinic and sort of never left. I'm not that old, but I'm coming up on my 30th anniversary in vet med. I did, all the odd little jobs in a vet clinic that there is to do. I was the receptionist and the groomer and the kennel cleaner and the unlicensed surgical assistant and all sorts of things. And that was really where I fell in love and decided that vet school was what I was doing. And it was sort of honestly, I came for the pets and stayed for the clients. And I think
I love that.
I think that's unusual because a lot of us are like, oh, we don't want to deal with people. And then we realize that that's
right.
So much of what we do. But I knew early on that, if I could make something make sense to my client, and I was, 18 to 20 years old. I had not been to vet school. I was just doing my basic science things in high school and college. But there was so much appreciation and relationship building and just this really good feeling that was the best way to help this pet, regardless of whether the treatment was A or B, that knowing that the owner was going forward in a way that made sense to them and they felt good about was the most important part to me.
I totally agree with that, because in dermatology and allergy, there's so much involvement of immunology. And not that I'm explaining immunology to an owner, but I'm explaining why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I think they appreciate that. And I'm sure in nutrition, that's the same thing.
Yeah. And that's a very perfect lead in to how I've gotten to where I am right now. So I went through vet school thinking I was going to be a small animal GP. And if you'd told me that I was going to do a master's degree and a residency after I graduated, even on the day I graduated, I would have told you were nuts. But during my internship, I worked with an internist who had completed a nutrition residency. And just the way he asked some questions and prompted thought about the physiology behind everything made me really think seriously about it. And I ultimately went ahead and I was in general practice for a bit, and then went back for my residency. There's not very many places where the job market is saturated for veterinary nutritionists, but Davis is one of them. So,
Interesting.
so
Lucky you.
I did a little more education during that time. Left Davis and was really, really lucky to have been offered a job at the University of Pennsylvania. It was a
Wow.
temporary faculty position, just sabbatical relief for Kathy Michelle, who's a really, really amazing mentor. Came back to California to start my practice. My husband was taking his job in his practice here in San Carlos, and I thought, what a great location to start a pet nutrition consultation practice, a standalone solo specialty, which, was really, this was 10 years ago, was really a novel concept at the time. There was probably 2 nutritionists that I could
Right.
think of at the time that were working in private practice. But those were large referral hospitals, and nobody was doing what I had in mind. And I think
Well, and also just so our listeners are aware, San Carlos is like the heart of Silicon Valley. It's a very well-populated area, a lot of pets, a lot of families. So I can see why your business would take off.
yeah, yeah. And what I had in mind was honestly, it wasn't that this practice was going to be successful. It was an experiment because I wanted to find out what the barriers were to doing nutrition in practice. Because, like you guys are referring to, there's so much demand for nutrition expertise, but at the same time, it's hard to deliver nutrition in a way that makes sense for everybody. And I was really interested to figure out what would make it work in private practice. And so I started veterinary nutrition care as a one-woman show. I automated as much of what I could of, appointment scheduling and history taking and things like that. But it was really, really labor intensive. But I got really busy really fast. And it was a lot of fun. I had a baby at the time, so it wasn't my entire life at the time. But I did so much. I learned so much. It was a phenomenal experience. But after a while, it got rather exhausting, as I knew it would. But I just hadn't taken the time to stop and fix the things that I knew, needed work along the way because I had so many patients. And so it took a while, but I stopped taking new clients at some point. I wrapped up what I had in progress, and I said, okay, now I'm going to fix the things that need fixing and upgrade some of my tools, and I probably at this point need an assistant and a few other things. Well, then it was March of 2020, and I became a COVID stay-home kindergarten teacher, as well as I
Right.
inherited a family member and dementia. So there was a
wow.
lot of other things going on. So that return to practice got delayed for a while,
Sure.
and I'm honestly really grateful that it did because it gave me pause to think about, big picture, high level, what was working well and what wasn't. And what was working well was the relationships that I was building and how well it felt on both sides of the equation. But in retrospect, and I don't think I would have seen this if I had just fixed my technical things and gone back to work, was there was something that was still missing in terms of what clients really wanted from me. And what I mean by that is this. A nutrition consult process is that clients would fill out this really detailed diet history form. And then I would break it all down and do calculations and translate the data on the diets that they were talking about into technically what the diet means to me. This diet is this percent protein, this percent fat, this percent carbohydrate, this many calories, and has, this ingredient list. And then, there's 6 different diets being rotated, so we, summarize all of them together. Then we look at the pet and say, these are the needs of the pet because of their age, sex, breed, nutritional requirements because of a disease or whatever. And then we look at the client and the lifestyle to say, okay, this is a client who wants or needs XYZ built into whatever's the pet's feeding plan. And we would take all of those considerations and work out a plan that addressed all of them. And then, just like any plan in veterinary medicine, that plan includes the sort of prescription of the diet or of the feeding plan, but also a plan for how we're going to follow up and when.
Mm-hmm.
And so as much as that was all happening, and what people would leave me with was like a 6-page written document of describing all of this. So I am not short on words, and I'm very open book as far as what I'm describing, what I'm doing. I really want people to know what the process is. But one of the things I would have fixed in the technical detail category was I really wanted to make that kind of an infographic style display that people could interact with and really kind of absorb that information visually rather than as long text. Because what I would see in my follow-up was a lot of questions that were sort of, you should go back and read the summary because that was in there about, why we're doing this. But also the between the lines thing that I was really only able to see later was, I think people were looking for more along the lines of empowerment and true understanding and depth of understanding about how to do this for themselves, rather than, please make a recommendation. Mm-hmm. And that's totally not all of my clients. In fact, in part of this, retrospective review that I did, about maybe half my patients were true specialty medicine patients, where in the sense of, I have this multi-complicated thing, and this is beyond the scope of my primary care veterinarian, so this recommendation needs to be made by a specialist. And that client is here for the recommendation because they need help managing their disease. Okay, so that model actually works really well for those clients because they just want to do what's recommended. Right. I had another group of clients, though, that maybe didn't have pets with such significant diseases. Maybe they had, kind of an adverse food response, maybe some chronic soft stools or something, but not overtly unhealthy and not significant, severe, and multiple diagnoses. And those are the ones where I really got the impression that what they were looking for was something a little bit different than what that consultation provided. And that's really where I've gone with the idea for full circle pet nutrition, is that whole pet owners want this empowerment to feel like they're doing a good job making choices for their pets. And that's, that really speaks to my background. So that's where we're going now. That's what I'm doing. So when I came back to veterinary nutrition care, once some other life things settled down, I actually didn't go back to reopening my consultation practice. I'm relaunching it in the form of educational tools for clients.
That's fantastic. I think most pet owners feel there's a sense of, I don't know if it's guilt, but maybe it's because you can't communicate with your pet other than the wagging tail, right? Because I had a friend say to me, do you ever feel guilty that you don't take Lib for a walk every day? And I went, not really, and she, it's, you just want to make sure you're doing the right thing for your loved pet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and what I think is a good idea about full circle is, how many times do you get simple, and I hate to say idiotic statements? Like one day I was at the bank making a deposit, and she said, oh, you're a veterinary dermatologist. Is there enough calling for that? Well, we get that all the time, which I'm sure you probably got that too. But she said to me, what do you feed your dog? And I told her the brand, and the exact statement. I read that kills dogs. I can't imagine, Dr. Farcas, being in your position, because I remember it was a Wednesday, and on Monday and Tuesday we were so busy, and I heard that, and I couldn't even address it. I was so exhausted. Because where do you even start with that? I really, and it was a good food. It was a good pet food. It was Imes. She had asked me. I said, "Well, I fed my Imes response formula. If you remember the FP years ago, the fish and potato." And she said, "Oh, I read that kills dogs." And I thought, where do I go with this? Hey, did you know that Blue Buffalo makes prescription diets that are formulated by animal nutritionists and veterinarians? And they're used for dietary needs such as kidney support, gastrointestinal support, weight management, and our favorite, allergy and skin problems. They make a food allergic diet that's an alligator based called NP or a hydrolyzed salmon based for dogs and cats called HF. So please ask your veterinarian about Blue Buffalo prescription diets.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry. Some of you know me as Grandpa Larry, and I run Larry's Animal Safari on YouTube, where we share sweet and educational videos about baby gorillas, zoo animals, and the amazing teams who care for them. If you love animals of all kinds, I'd love to have you join us. You'll meet little ones like Jamila and Kayembe, learn how zoo families grow, and enjoy real moments that bring joy and curiosity to animal lovers everywhere. Just search Larry's Animal Safari on YouTube or click the link in the show notes. New videos go up weekly, and each one supports awareness for animal care and conservation. Thanks to Speaking of Pets podcast for all they do. Now, let's get back to the show.
I can see you have to start from the ground up educating pet owners, and not only just from the ground up, but other ones that say, how do I determine how much protein my dog needs? It's a 12-year-old golden. You've just got a full load, in my opinion.
It really is. So there's a couple of things.
Okay.
First, the way I see it right now is veterinary nutrition, or how we feed our pets. We should just be more simple about it. Let's go back 30 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, because this was starting at the beginning of my career, I think. Used to be sort of along the lines of everything else we do in veterinary medicine, which is, my doctor said this, so that's what I'll do.
Right.
Yeah.
And there weren't that many brands of pet food. It was a much smaller section of the grocery store.
Yeah. It was like Alpo was your only choice.
Right. And
Bravery Train.
right.
Well, and those hamburger ones that look like hamburger that you break
Oh,
up.
right.
And it had like orange in it to make it look like American cheese.
You know what bothers me about that, Dr. Farcas? Fast forward to now 30 years, some of the corporate practices only stock one brand of food.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? And that bothers me because as a dermatologist, I was open to any brand.
Right.
Because I wanted what was right for that pet. Right. And that's what kind of bothers me now, that like our clients really getting, are they being pigeonholed by certain corporate owned practices into this food and this food only? Let's think outside the box. Maybe they need a different brand.
Yeah.
That's
well,
rough.
I mean, and that's really a practical thing that's not exclusive to corporate. I mean, any small practice is going to have an issue of space, right? And just bandwidth in terms of managing inventory. You
Right.
know that dog food or pet food is a pain in the butt to have around in your practice because
The truck
gets
comes, you got to unload 20-pound bags. Yes. Yeah.
it gets peed on, it's in the way, it attracts pests, it expires on the shelf, etc.
That's true.
So as much as you can streamline that process, it's usually better for your practice. So in the sense that providing medication from your practice, just like providing food from your practice, is a convenience for people, sure. I probably would only carry one brand of food in my practice if I was a general
Right. I
practitioner.
see what you're saying.
But I would also have to say, I also understand the rest of the world of what's out there, and we'll give you this one to get you through right now, but this is actually the one I want you on that's a different brand later. Totally reasonable. So yes, absolutely openness to all, but there's just practical limitations of the reality of vet clinics. And I'm certainly not going to hold anybody, up to keeping all the
Their feet to the fire.
right, because you can't keep all the drugs on your shelf and you can't keep all the foods on your shelf.
Right.
That would be dumb. So
And now that they have VetSource and Chewy and all the other plans where you can actually then just call in the prescription. You don't have to stock all the food like you used to. Thank goodness.
yeah, and I mean, as much as there's downsides for some practices, I think there's a lot of benefits in the terms of opening up the options that way.
But it's always fun to take, like Libby, our golden, we take her to Choice Pet to do the bath. You can do the bath there.
Yeah.
And going down that food aisle, she's like, she doesn't know what to do with herself, which one to pick. But how do you know, Dr. Farkas, like, Libby seems fine. She's a 4-year-old golden retriever. She's active. She looks good. Her fur looks good. How do you know that your pet has a nutritional issue?
Oh, that's a
Like, what
big
are the
question.
signs?
That's a really really hard question.
Yeah.
And for now, according to the information that we have available and the testing that we can do, we're really looking at how does she look? How does she look to you? How does she seem to you? Is she giving you the impression she feels good
Yeah.
and looks good? And I would ask the same question of her vet. Are you seeing any of the signs that there may be a problem?
Like,
Now,
does she seem overweight? Does she seem underweight? Yeah.
yeah. Now, there's this concept called personalized nutrition, and I love integrating the idea of personalized pet nutrition. The idea that we as people have recommended daily allowances for certain nutrients in pet foods. There's these other guidelines that we should be meeting, and that's based on varying degrees of help, levels of evidence. But for the most part, these numbers work for most pets because they've been fed for a long time, and most pets do pretty well with them. But there's absolutely times when those numbers don't apply anymore to an individual. The probably classic example of that is chronic kidney disease, when the first thing we do in early kidney disease is restrict phosphorus. Okay, you have this diagnosis, you no longer have a normal phosphorus requirement, you have a much lower phosphorus requirement. But that same concept probably applies for lots and lots of different nutrients, and we just don't have the data to say, yes, this is different for you, or this is how we figure out if you're different in this way.
Interesting.
But that's why it's important to keep looking and keep working and keep investigating what we could do better, because there's absolutely stuff we could do better.
Two things I want to mention, Janet, and Janet, going on something you said. I have 2 Goldens rescues, and Janet got hers from the same rescue here in Ohio. And my Gidget, my China rescue, is 5, and she's been on a dry kibble, a prescription dry kibble, and not for any health reasons. Just, well, I like her to have high fiber because she's got some anal gland issues. But I started
Excellent example
both
of
of them.
personalized pet nutrition.
Oh, thank you. You're right. But 2 points. One, I started her on one of the fresh food companies, and they get probably half of that, half a kibble. And I have to tell you, she is much more active. And that's my clinical impression. And the second thing I wanted to ask you about, what about this copper disease in Labrador retrievers and the levels of copper in the pet foods, and that AFCO this year still said we're not going to touch it. Would you explain that to
First of
our
all,
guests?
what do you mean copper?
Yeah, please explain that, Dr. because I'm concerned about that.
So Labradors especially seem to be predisposed to a type of liver disorder called chronic active hepatopathy. And as a part of that process, as a part of that inflammation, they will preferentially accumulate the mineral copper in their liver. And then that can go on to create some symptoms, or contribute to the disease, I should say. Now, I am nowhere near the leading expert in this, and there are people that actually focus this area of research, and I definitely don't want to overspeak on what they do and don't know. For me, we have, Alice, I'm sure you've seen this graphic, the pyramid that's called the levels of evidence.
Okay, yes.
Right. And so the bottom, in terms of scientific literature, the bottom is case studies. I saw this once, and above that is, maybe case control studies, and on until the top is a synthesis review of multiple peer-reviewed, well-controlled, really well-designed studies. And unfortunately, we're with the copper thing, we're not at the top of that yet. And so it's really hard to clearly say this is definitely a problem and we should definitely make changes. So, and we can say that about a lot of things in veterinary medicine. I was listening to your episode with Susan Wynn just recently
Oh,
about,
right.
about
On
the
raw
raw
diet.
diets.
Yes.
And, she's talking about the advanced glycation end products and that being
Right.
a potential toxin and a reason to preferentially feed fresh or raw foods. And, I can't say that she's wrong, but I don't have a high enough level of evidence for me to say that she's absolutely right and we should change everything that we know we do about it yet. And I think some of that just comes down to our personal preference and our own experience to be, what level of evidence do we require before we start recommending changes?
And the sad thing about the copper issue in labs is, isn't it the only way to diagnose it a liver biopsy? I mean, there's no non-invasive way. So that's concerning to me. I can see, I guess, according to what you just said, why AFCO really didn't then take a stance on it. Blue Buffalo Natural Veterinary Diets offer a natural alternative in nutritional therapy. With their in-house research and development team with over 300 years experience in well pet and veterinary therapeutic diets, more than 600 scientific publications, and more than 50 U.S. patents. Blue Buffalo Natural Veterinary Diets.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry. Some of you know me as Grandpa Larry, and I run Larry's Animal Safari on YouTube, where we share sweet and educational videos about baby gorillas, zoo animals, and the amazing teams who care for them. If you love animals of all kinds, I'd love to have you join us. You'll meet little ones like Jamila and Kayembe, learn how zoo families grow, and enjoy real moments that bring joy and curiosity to animal lovers everywhere. Just search Larry's Animal Safari on YouTube, or click the link in the show notes. New videos go up weekly, and each one supports awareness for animal care and conservation. Thanks to Speaking of Pets podcast for all they do. Now, let's get back to the show.
I have a question. When a pet owner comes to you, what is their biggest concern? Are they worried about fat? Are they worried about protein, obesity, or like what's the most common issue that they have?
That could be anything. I think that, going back to my kind of idea of having two sort of groups of clients in my consulting practice, the first group with the kind of pets with more significant medical concerns, they're usually more concerned about just getting a recommendation that works for their pet. And they're usually less attached to a feeding strategy or an idea about how, certain things are good or certain things are bad. That other group of clients, probably the biggest thing I'm going to answer more generically is straightening out what doesn't make sense. So
I love that.
I've come to the conclusion that the way I like to talk about this is there's this gap. This didn't exist 30 years ago before the internet and marketing and this proliferation of pet foods. Not that marketing didn't exist, but pet food marketing was very different 30 years ago.
Oh yeah.
And, now people have access to so much information, but so much of it is really poor quality information or biased or just purely marketing or misinformation. And I think that people are getting a bit better at understanding that, you can't trust everything you read. We've had that exposure long enough. We've learned that lesson. But at the same time, there's not a great resource to go to fix that for people. Because if you just keep looking harder, you might just find more junk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
so-
why Janet and I started the podcast. And I think I would even go out on a limb and say, I'm sure that was part of why you started Full Circle.
Yeah,
To
exactly.
really cut through the misinformation.
Well, and as Joe pet owner here,
Yeah.
I don't have a veterinary degree. I have an incredible amount of trust in these dog food companies, right? Because I buy, well, actually, I buy what my sister tells me to buy for the dog, but I buy that and that it's going to be safe, it's going to be healthy, it has the right nutrition, nutrients, whatever in it. Because I wouldn't know what to feed a dog.
Yeah,
Right.
Like you
absolutely.
said, it's different than humans, your daily, what is that called? Daily requirements.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that gap between what I as a pet owner feel like I want to know and what I
Right.
can realistically know is really bothersome. That just unless you have that kind of a relationship with your veterinarian where, you know, I just feed what they say and I'm fine with that, which if that's the case, great. But if
Yeah.
it's not, that's okay too. But
Well, and I
we
think
need to
for
get
some
people some better resources to be able to fill that gap
Right.
because otherwise someone else is going to fill it with something else.
and I think for some pet owners, it's affordability too.
Yeah,
You know, I worked with a food pantry, and if we got pet food donated, it was a big deal. We would call certain clients that we knew had pets and couldn't afford food. So, you know, there's just, I don't know, I just put so much trust, and I watch all those commercials on TV, you know, the happy cat, and they feed them X brand, and, you know,
But Janet, that leads to a good question. Dr. Farkas, is there a big difference between the quote unquote premium, which I know the word premium in pet
Yeah.
food nutrition has no definition,
Yeah.
and some of the quote unquote cheaper diets? I mean, can you give us your opinion on that?
yeah. I think that probably the best way to answer that question is it depends on how you define quality. And that's another word that doesn't have an official
Right.
definition. So
Right.
people have been taught through a lot of marketing for the most part that quality
Yeah.
means something. Quality means an ingredient list I
No
understand.
corn. That's what
Or
it means.
quality means a fresh diet, or quality means,
Right.
I home cook instead of buy a commercial or whatever. But this is probably my, biggest pet peeve in nutrition is, and I know that's one of your questions, is
oh, well, then I'm going to change it.
anything, go ahead, anything that's fear-based or sort of smear tactics in marketing. If you're trying to intimidate somebody to feed a different
Right,
diet,
right.
that's not right.
Right. Right.
And but that's so much of what people are absorbing that they
Yeah.
end up feeling like, well, I can't feed a cheap diet, and I can't feed this, and I can't feed that, and then
Right.
the only thing that's left is, this other option that's inaccessible for one reason or another, and that's not fair.
Yes. Right.
So when I answer that question, I first start with saying that how I define quality is safety and nutrition. Does the company
sense.
do a good job with
Yeah.
food safety, screening ingredients for toxins,
Right.
and that their ingredients are providing the
And their
nutrition
suppliers.
they're supposed to?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Does their recipe make sense? Who was it formulated by? Is it current? Who's manufacturing the diet? And, are you testing it for things afterward? All of that, all of those steps involve testing and expertise, which is not inexpensive. So, to some extent, there's a benefit to when we have a level, a scale, some degree of scale in our manufacturing, because it's going to be really, really hard to do a good job with quality, with my definition of quality, when you're, this really inspired pet lover making the best pet food you can in your garage. Right?
Right.
But that actually does
Sounds
meet
like a meth
some
lab.
people. That actually does meet some people's definition of quality.
Yeah.
So when we use, food safety and nutrition as our definition of quality, then I can say there are absolutely diets all across the spectrum of affordability that
Yeah.
are doing a really good job meeting those needs. So Purina dog chow, for example, is kind of a caricature of inexpensive dog food.
Right.
They're doing all the things that they should to be producing that product in a way that is safe and providing good nutrition. Is it the most highly digestible diet? No. Will your dog produce fairly large voluminous stools on it? Yep. Will they, have the brightest, shiniest coat? Maybe not. But I mean that it's a starting point, and it is a perfectly reasonable option for many, many pets. And I'm can't remember the last time I actually made that recommendation to feed that diet, just because of kind of the nature of my practice. But at the same time, I'm not going to take somebody whose dog is doing well on that they're happy with, that makes sense in their life, and tell them that they
Same
need to
here.
change.
I would, Dr. Farkas, I would get that question, and the owner would almost feel guilty and say to me, "Well, I'm feeding kibbles and bits, and I'm looking at this dog, and it looks fabulous, and its blood work was great, and I'm like, well, I'm not. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm not going to change." And is he gassy? No. How many stools does he have a day? Well, he goes in the morning, goes at night. How could I ask for anything better? It's kind of like I can't eat what Janet eats, and she can't eat what I eat. I mean, so why do we feel that all dogs have to eat this dog food when they're individuals? I hope I said that right.
Yeah. And we may find out, that Susan wins onto something before I am, and that we,
Sure.
should really change and, have less kibble in our world. And maybe that's the case, but until we have, to me, more solid evidence that that's a recommendation we should truly be making, I think that we can't afford to make that recommendation really broadly at this
Right.
point, because we are going to exclude so many people from being able to attain that.
Well, and not only for the raw diets where Dr. Wynn with Instinct, but also for the fresh food, because that's
Yeah.
relatively new too. But I have to tell you, we had Dr. Wynn on with Instinct because I have had literally clients that I remember the exam room too, and I'm sitting there looking at the couple and the gentleman, and I said, "What are you feeding?" "Well, I feed raw venison." I said, "Okay," and I'm in Ohio, so he's probably a hunter. And I said, "How do you know? We have chronic wasting disease here, which, Janet, is not a good thing in deer, and then to eat that if you're a human." And I said, "Well, how do you know that the meat is safe?" And he said, "Are you ready for this? I do the smell test." So this is what, Janet, this is what we deal with.
Yeah, I
And
know.
I thought, you know what? If people are going to feed raw, at least let's get them onto a company that does some testing for pathogens and things like that. Because I mean, I think, and then I had another gal in, she was a pharmacist. She was a foster for one of the rescue groups. She was doing the same thing. So I can't even imagine if when someone comes into your service like that and they say, "Well, I'm feeding raw venison," do they actually buy what you're trying to tell them about good nutrition and balanced nutrition?
Well, I mean, that depends a lot on why they're
Or
here.
don't they even come to you at all because they think they're doing the right thing?
Alice, I think it's kind of like a human doctor saying you're 50 pounds overweight, you're on the road to diabetes, you're pre-diabetic, you're, heart disease.
Oh, they're just not listening.
As a physician, you can give all the recommendations you want,
Yeah.
right? It's when they go home, what they decide to do, that you don't have control over that.
Yeah.
It bothers me that the pet has no say in this.
I
You know what I
know.
mean?
I
You've
know.
got a brain and you know what's going in there, but that poor pet is at the mercy of a human.
And as a pet owner, it's your responsibility to do the best for your pet.
Yeah.
Well, the word responsibility, forget
So,
it.
Dr. Farkas, I have a question. What is the process when you have a patient come in? There's an intake, and then how do you get to?
Oh yeah, and is it referral
Prescribing.
only?
So veterinary nutritionists can work in probably lots of different ways. Many of us work sort of exclusively with veterinarians because of the whole restriction of who we can work with in terms of a veterinarian client-patient relationship, right? I can't just advise random clients on medical issues for pets that I've never met,
Right.
because there's lots of ways that could go wrong, right? When I
Even
take
though
my
we get
clients,
asked that all the time, Janet.
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, all the time.
When I take my client's word for something, when they say that their pet is, chattering when something happens, it could be there's lots of different ways that people can interpret things
Interesting.
in a way that's not as helpful to us. So that's
Yeah.
really a consumer protection that we don't provide specific medical advice. Telemedicine laws have changed things, and different states have different laws.
Yeah.
But for the most part, the process is that clients will reach out to a veterinary nutritionist and request a consultation. That response to that is usually, okay, please fill out this really long, detailed diet history form because I need to know everything about what you fed for a long time, as well as everything about what the responses to those diets could have been. I also
Including
would always
treats.
ask, yeah, oh yeah,
Including
Yeah.
treats.
treats,
Oh, yeah.
table scraps, the Cheerios from
Supplements.
under the high chair, my cat eats birds outside, any of those things. So all of that gets sort of collated and then sort of cross-referenced to medical records to see, okay, they had diarrhea at this point. Oh, that was when they introduced this new diet or whatever the case may be. And also checking weight changes over time is a big part of that. Oh, that episode of pancreatitis that happened according to, the introduction of feeding, bacon treats or whatever the case may be. So we will go through all of that sort of homework pre-consultation. And then what I would do anyway in my practice was I would sit down with the client for an hour and speak with them about what's important to them, what matters to them, and then kind of trade roles and say, this is what's important to me about this, and this is what matters to me. And sort of really just sort of negotiate and work out a solution to a problem. It's really important to me that people feel like a true partner in their pet's care and that they play a really important role, because if one of the reasons that nutrition is different than everything else in veterinary medicine, one is I feed myself and my pet every day. So and neither of us, has keeled over. So I'm clearly doing something right. So there's some degree of expertise there, perceived expertise maybe. And then there's also all of the things that people are exposed to, information and marketing and research and that. Whereas, Alice, I'm sure you have never had a client ask you about what suture material you're using to close your biopsy
Right.
Right.
or the qualifications of your derm path lab.
Right.
But people will absolutely ask that level of detail about pet food recommendations because it's much more personal to people.
And they hear a lot of things
yeah
about
absolutely.
that as opposed to suture material. You're right.
Right. They have never heard about servicing an anesthetic machine and how
No.
that happens. But it's,
Right.
I would argue that that's potentially more crucial aspect of practice is to make
Right.
sure your anesthesia machine is correctly set up. But
You know what,
Absolutely.
honestly, as a pet person, I'm like, what the hell? I don't know.
right.
Do you know what I'm saying? I didn't even know there was an anesthesia.
Or Janet, when you're going in for your colonoscopy, let's check out that anesthesia machine.
Oh,
No,
when was the
seriously.
last service?
Yes.
See, I'm going to start asking.
See how
Where was that probe last? That's what I want to know.
see how your MD responds to that question. They will be
Right.
absolutely surprised. But people expect that level of detail in nutrition.
Yes. Yes, they do.
Well, and I think people, dog or pet owners, can relate to that because, as you said, we eat, they eat.
Yeah.
It's a pleasure source, right?
Yeah, and it's not only that, it's not only exposure, but it's also it affects their lifestyle. If you
Right.
prescribe a
absolutely.
medication, if you prescribe a medication to give twice a day for 2 weeks, okay, that's fine. I'll work it in. But it's not going to change anything fundamentally about how they run their house.
Right.
But if we're changing diets, maybe we're changing a multi-cat household and one cat has a disease that needs a special diet, and that we're asking people to shift from free feeding to meal feeding, then that's a complete upheaval of life in that house because now
Yeah.
cats have to be separated at meal times,
yeah.
or there has to be automated feeders or some entirely new process.
And you know
has
what,
to be
Dr.
implemented.
Farcas? You're going to be the one to tell the cat, not me.
Yeah. I was. So my sister called me pretty desperate with asking for a recommendation because,
What is about sisters in desperation? Okay, that's all I have to say about that. Go on.
well,
You haven't gotten one of my calls at 2
I
a.m.
understand the desperation because her cats were waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. They had 2 young kids at the time. So they were waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning and beating down the bedroom door to be fed, yowling and howling and scratching at the door.
Like this.
And they had tried lots of things. They had done perfectly reasonable things, and they were really seriously distraught over the idea that they would have to rehome the cats because nobody was sleeping.
Yes.
Because the kids were waking up, and then their day started at 4.
Yeah.
And
then the cats
so-
slept all day, I'm sure. Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
what was
probably.
wrong with the cats? What was the 4? Were they hungry?
They were just decided it was time to be fed at 4 a.m. So, I mean,
How
in
did
that
you
case-
solve that?
Oh, the solution was actually pretty
Put
simple.
the trough out, like I have the trough back there.
Yeah,
They
well,
just eat all day.
so the cats were typically fed dry food anyway. And so we just switched them to automated feeders with the collars that activate them. So now,
Good thinking.
now the problem is they would go downstairs where the feeders were and yell at the feeders
Right.
until it was time to be
like
fed.
this, like they're trying to.
So that was actually really relatively straightforward solution.
Easy one.
But I mean, lifestyle, it's
yeah.
really underrated. We don't give it enough credit
look
for
at-
how much it affects how we look at nutrition.
And those cats could have lost a good home because of that.
Absolutely.
Seriously. Had you not intervened?
Can we talk about the diabetic cat? So
Oh,
I find out that
please.
Smudge is diabetic, and then the vet tech has said, "I'm going to show you how to give the cat insulin." I'm like, "There's no way." Next thing you know, the whole family's trained, but we had to
Right.
put her on the dryer at a certain time during the day,
Yeah.
make her eat the stinky wet food, which she was fine with, and it got to the point where she would just go, "I'm ready." Like,
Okay.
right in the
Now,
bed.
I have a specific disease question. For example, when I would get a miniature schnauzer owner in, and they would ask me about food, and it had nothing to do with their allergy or derm. They just wanted a recommendation. I would suggest, and please tell me if I'm right or wrong, a low-fat diet, knowing that they're prone to pancreatitis. Would you recommend that or no?
That I believe that
see what I mean?
that diet should have a picture of a miniature schnauzer on the back.
Oh, good. Okay, so I didn't do wrong. Good. Because Dr. Rusty Moore, my classmate who's the dean at OSU, he has 3 miniature schnauzers, one of which has to be on that low-fat diet. And I always think, man, maybe they should have started the dog out on that
diet,
and
yeah.
subverted the flare-up of it.
Yeah, and I don't know enough about the pathophysiology of how pancreatitis develops in that breed or what
Right.
is so predisposing to be able to make a prediction about prevention. But if I had a
Yeah.
miniature schnauzer, that's absolutely what I would feed. The other thing about it is those dogs are also calcium oxalate stone formers, and so knowing Royal Canin did a smart thing there, knowing that diet would be predominant or largely fed to that breed with that predisposition.
Yes.
They also went ahead and did their urine supersaturation testing on it, so they could put a claim that diet does not promote stone formation in that breed.
That's a great idea. Great idea.
There's now a couple of other diets from other manufacturers doing low fat, and so it's not like that's the exclusive
Right.
only recommendation. But absolutely, I would feed miniature schnauzers a low fat diet.
What other breeds come to mind? I'm just racing through my head trying to think of, I know Hills makes JD the joint diet for, say, some older, well, I hate to say it, obese Labrador retrievers that are on the verge of an ACL tear. Things that can be therapeutic to kind of ward off a problem.
Yeah. I mean, all of our therapeutic diets were designed for a reason.
Well, I'll tell you, I love the cat food. That low, what is that cat low allergy food?
No, she's on Purina Clear.
Oh my gosh, it is a game changer.
Yeah.
I just thought when that came
Dr.
out,
Farcas isn't a fan of it, but my husband and son who are
yeah,
cat
because she's got allergic humans. But I'll tell you, Dr. Farkas, when that came out, That fascinated me. I
Yeah,
thought,
it's,
how interesting. Now these
works.
people that are allergic to cats, I think it takes down, what, 40% of the allergenicity of
It
the cat.
works.
What? Yeah, I
It
know.
works.
I'm surprised they didn't market it better than they did.
so
The
I've
cat
I've
food,
just recently
no.
learned about that diet. I've been
Right.
I've been out of the loop in terms of technical
Oh.
details of therapeutic diets for a bit, and so I've just recently
Yeah.
heard about that, and also heard some pretty remarkable things from
Yeah.
veterinarians who are using it. So I believe it is having an impact for pets and people.
It
Yeah.
works.
I
We've been
suspect
using
that
it for years.
if they haven't marketed in a way that you would expect them to, it may be that
Yeah.
there's a rule about they can't make the claim that you
Oh.
think they should be able to make.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, Janet, you
Anyway,
got to ask her a
I'm
question, but she
asking a
already
question
knows
I
it.
already know. What is your pet or human peeve?
I will give you another one.
Okay.
Okay. And then
So
I'm going to ask you another one.
so
Yeah.
I think my most important one is that whole fear-based marketing, intimidation-based marketing,
Oh,
I
disparaging
agree.
stuff in pet food. There's no call for it. That's just
no,
silly.
no.
Otherwise, I think it's being closed-minded and,
Oh,
believing
yes.
that I know one thing, so therefore everything
Yeah.
else is out. And that's
Yeah.
really what full circle pet nutrition is there for. It's
I love
so
it.
that, one of the early stages of what we do is introducing key information and tools and calculators to sort of sort out what we do and don't know. Because a lot of times people are coming in with the idea that, kibble is bad or this particular brand is bad or, something is bad. And what they need is context. So that is bad if this, or that is bad under this conditions, or that is bad according to somebody who has an alternate agenda.
Right.
But if we look at, all of the relevant things and figure out what is a more useful way to look at pet food, then we can start to see, okay, this is providing this package of things and that is providing that package of things. And it is really, really hard to study pet food or effects of diet, because when we change diets, we're not just changing one ingredient and we're not just changing one nutrient. We are changing everything about the diet and probably lots of stuff about the pet's microbiome and immune system and lots of stuff. And so cause and effect can be really hard to sort out unless we're changing, experimental diets with single nutrients at a time.
Having said that, how long do you give the patient on the new diet to accurately say, hey, he's doing well, or no, we're going to switch to something else, like a couple of months?
Well, I
I'm
think it
just
depends on
curious.
what it is that we're trying to do with the diet. I think if we're trying to, say, resolve GI signs with,
Oh, yeah.
a diet change, that's usually
Yeah.
pretty quick. That's a couple of
Yeah.
weeks and sometimes immediate.
Yeah.
Good
Okay,
or
so
bad,
here's
good or
another
bad,
question.
right?
Right.
Here's
And
our
I
new
know with
question.
derm, it takes at least 8 to 10 weeks, but you're right. With the GI thing, we'll know within a week. Yeah.
Right. But then
Okay,
also
so because
with dermatological stuff, I literally just emailed somebody about this yesterday, that
Oh,
if you're talking about symptoms that wax and wane less frequently than that, you're going to have to feed it for longer so that you
yeah.
can tell that you've affected the cycle. Because if
Right.
something that recurs every 3 months and you did a 2-month trial and said it didn't work, well, you might just
And
been
and
in between flares anyway.
and the sticky wicket there is if they have atopy, inhalant allergies, and they're doing well on the diet, and then they
Right.
come into their ragweed season, and then people blame the diet. So it's a multifaceted
Yeah,
problem.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we have a tendency to blame diet without looking at
We
lots of
do.
other things.
Oh,
We
diet, you're
do.
right. Number one. Oh, geez. Who's that?
This
Aha.
is Isabel. She likes me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, the other one hates you.
the other one hates me. She's a sweetheart, but she is one big cat.
Yeah, she's a big hunk of cat.
She's a big
Dr.
hunk of
Farkas,
cat.
what pets do you have?
I actually currently don't have a pet.
Oh,
Oh,
no,
wow.
no pet hair in that house, Janet.
Well, there's still residual pet hair, believe me.
Yeah, right.
Like, okay, so here's our other question because you knew our
Oh,
question.
what?
So I have a special Dr. Farcas question.
Uh-oh.
If animals could talk,
Oh,
which would be the funniest?
Oh.
Whoa, you guys are really thinking on that one.
That's a good one.
Thank you.
I don't know that I could answer that.
Well, I think it depends, because I think personality-wise, you've got, guys like labs and boxers and things like that are just absolute doofuses at some point. And so
Right.
I think they are inherently entertaining.
Yes, they are.
The
Their
one,
whole bodies.
the one that I've actually got in mind right now, I actually just wrote a story for my newsletter about Betsy, who's a German Shepherd that I worked with, and she had horrible adverse food response manifested as constipation and GI signs.
Aw.
And she came to me on an unbalanced raw duck and rice diet that her owner had figured out helped, but he knew wasn't gonna be the long-term thing.
Yeah.
But he had improved her signs. So we jumped through lots and lots of hoops to get Betsy's duck diet both balanced and cooked and nutritionally appropriate for her, but also reasonably manageable for the owner, because he was literally deboning ducks for a
I
for a
can't
70-pound
imagine.
dog.
Stirring.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
So we made it all feasible, and it all worked out really well. But the thing about Betsy is she's a police dog by breeding, and
Oh.
it's not, I forget how she didn't end up in work, but it wasn't her fault. So she didn't fail out of a
Right.
program. It was like somebody
Right,
adopted her
right.
and into a pet family, and she was a poor fit at her initial family. So she ended up with my client, who did a phenomenal job with her. But she was the most intuitive, smartest patient I've ever seen. She would look at you and she was reading you. She would be reading your mind, and you didn't mess with her. She was absolutely lovely to work with. She was not a scary dog in any sense of the word.
Yeah. Yeah. It's scary.
But if you walked past her in her car, you would not even think about touching the car.
Because she was on duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would say, I think Betsy would be the funniest, because I think she's got some insightful sarcasm.
Right. She could turn it on and turn it off just for scare tactics. Oh, I
Right,
love
because,
that.
Because I think
That's
she,
good.
I
That's
think she
good.
reads me so deeply that she's going to know what's
Right,
going to
right.
hit me.
Amy, what are you thinking right now?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not buying it.
That's right.
Right.
Well,
Well,
Janet,
thank you so much.
we have to have a link to Full Circle Pet Nutrition
We
on the
will.
show.
Yeah, yes, please. So Full Circle
Oh.
Pet Nutrition is just is not out of my consulting practice.
Right.
Historically, it's a course for pet owners. I'll be offering
Oh,
it
good.
soon,
I love that.
That's great.
and it's going to
That's
cover
great.
the components of the circle of nutrition, the understanding truly the details of the diet, the details of what's necessary for the pet, and the details of what's necessary for the owner and their lifestyle. And then we're going to sort of consolidate and compile that into essentially a personalized pet nutrition guide. So we give people a framework to be able to figure out how to take what's key information and translate that into making good choices, so that they get to feel confident that they're making choices that support their pet having the happiest, healthiest life. And that also includes receiving input from their vet and integrating that into the process. It's absolutely not a replacement for veterinary care, but it's a supplement because
Is it different modules, or will it be all in one program?
it's a course I'm going to teach live over 6 weeks. So
cool.
we'll have our regular sessions. I will do some weekly office hours so we can do some additional personalization. I feel really strongly about making sure people become a real valuable partner to their veterinary care team. And so we're going to do some extra sessions to make sure that they sort of know how to collaborate and how that collaboration really works and feels in a way that is effective, and not, I'm bringing you a stack of stuff that I printed off the internet that I want you to troubleshoot for me.
Right. Right.
So
I love that idea.
there's going to be an online community to support each other and go through the process together. And it's going to be a really, really good experience. I've never done this before, so I'm calling this literally my founding members experience.
Right, right.
The first time we do it, my founding members will literally be helping me build the course for future participants. The point of it is not to generate money at this point. It's not an income
Right.
source. The point of it is to prove that it works and to prove that this
Yeah.
is something that people truly want. And so it's going to end up delivering a tremendous value relative to the fee I'm charging for it.
That's great.
Well, I can tell you for sure it's something people need.
Yeah,
It's
yeah, absolutely.
for sure I would go for that because I think that makes, when I was on your webpage, yes, it's true that people get counseling about these prescription diets, but not about the regular run-of-the-mill diets of
Right.
which there's millions, and it's actually tiring to go down the food aisle to know which. So I love that the course is going to address that and actually really, when you think about it, personalize it for your pet.
Yeah, absolutely. So for people that are interested, what I'm doing, because I'm teaching it live, I need a full cohort of people ready to go and participate.
Right.
So I am asking people to join my priority list. When
I
that
did.
priority, yeah, that
Yeah.
priority list is at veterinarynutritioncare.com/signup.
Okay.
And
Okay.
when that priority list fills, everybody who's on it will receive an invitation to join. And
cool.
that'll
We will
happen.
put that link in the notes. Yes.
Thank you. I
Very
appreciate
cool.
it. And then when
Oh.
that priority list fills, that happens, and then after that, I will open enrollment to public. But that's how I'm because I don't have a large social media presence. I am doing it that way so that I don't have one and two people joining at a time. So I get a
Right.
full group at once.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. No, we will put a link to that in the show notes. I think that's a wonderful idea. I
great.
really do.
Well, thank you. This has been so informative. I really appreciate your time.
If you or anyone else is interested, you can also follow Veterinary Nutrition Care on Instagram or Facebook. And veterinary professionals can also join that priority list as a veterinary professional. They'll receive a different set of updates on practice materials and helpful tools and things like that.
Oh, cool, cool, cool. I was going to say that the UC Davis staff, Dr. Larson, Dr. Kent, Dr. Jandry, they're like the annex of Speaking of Pets.
They are.
Dr. Jonathan, the bee
They're
guy.
like the agents. They
I
are.
know.
I didn't know Jonathan Deere was a bee guy. He was a resident
Yes.
of mine.
He's really a bee guy.
I know. It's like another talent of his.
He's a
And
bee
then
guy. Yeah.
Dr. Jandry, he and I are best friends. He's from 3 miles away here in Ohio.
He's a three-peater.
And Michael, and who else was on from UC Davis? Jennifer Larson. Oh gosh, we've had so many people. It's like the SOP annex, right, Janet?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I saw
They've been
that. And
great.
I'm like, oh, I know all these people. That's part of why I knew I'd be in good hands with this first podcast.
This has been incredible. We appreciate you and the great work you're doing. Thank you so much.
Thank you both for having me.
Please check Dr. Farcas's Full Circle Nutrition out. I think it's a Full Circle Pet Nutrition. I think it's a wonderful idea. It's there to help you understand these pet food labels, what quality pet food is, everything to do with what you're feeding your pet. And to be honest, what's more important than that?
Yep.
So anyway, this is Dr. Alice Novotny Jeroman and
Janet Novotny King from Cleveland, Ohio, saying thanks for listening. Don't forget to follow, share, and tell your friends about us. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.
thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Hey, thanks for watching and listening.
We like likes.
Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. You can follow us on social media at Speaking of Pets.
And give your pets a big kiss from the Novotny
Novotny
sisters.